Hi Freelancer, welcome to today's episode of the Freelance Blueprint. I'm your host Lisi, a freelance UX designer and digital nomad. Today we're joined by Ciarán, a fellow digital nomad and Shopify and Google Ads specialist. Unlike most of my guests, we actually met in real life. He's helped me with the SEO of my client-facing website and will also give you tips on how you can rank better on Google. He's also just started his YouTube channel and he's been one of the early supporters of my own journey with content creation. So it's nice to see how he finally started too. All right, let's dive in. Hi Ciarán, where are you calling from?
I'm in Bansko, sunny Bansko in Bulgaria.
Nice. It's a very famous digital nomad city. I heard from so many people about it. Is it worth the hype?
It is actually. It's definitely worth coming here. I would think you probably get more out of it in the winter than in the summer, but there's actually quite a lot to do in the summer as well, like hiking and big nature. It's the equivalent to, I don't know, Canada or North America. It's that big country, big mountains,
Nice.
big nature, lots of forests. So I can see the appeal. And it's only 2 hours from the coast in the Mediterranean. So if you need a beach day, you can just go down to Greece, 2 hours away.
Cool. I met you in real life, unlike most of my other podcast guests. But if I wouldn't know anything about you and I would meet your best friend, how do you think they would describe you to me?
Big question. Pretty chill, I think, for the most part. Open-minded, curious, explorative. Probably why I'm being a nomad and traveling the world. Yeah, I think those three things.
And like you said, you're a digital nomad. What was it for you where you decided, okay, I'm going to pack my things, I'm going to leave things behind, and I'm just going to go and do this?
That's interesting. Well, I had a lot of personal things going on, and I had quite a topsy-turvy time before I decided to pack my bags and sell everything I owned. So I had a company before that wasn't that successful. Then I tried to work for other people, less successful at that. I went through a divorce. So that was quite tricky. Then I decided, right, all my friends in Dublin, for example, were all settled down, having kids, having happy families. And they were going through a phase of their time where they were kind of really looking at themselves and not many people were interacting. I decided, right, might as well just go and explore for a bit to seek out new adventures. So I got rid of my apartment, sold everything I owned, packed in my job, and decided to go freelance and then travel.
Oh, so you started freelancing as you started being a nomad?
Yeah, at the same time. Kinda. I went freelance first. I quit my job. I don't recommend anybody do this, by the way, because I did it the worst possible way. But I quit my job and then figured it out afterwards.
Okay, so how did you figure it out? How did you go from, okay, I quit the job, I quit my apartment, everything, I just go and, okay, there's this freelance thing, because there's a lot of things that you need to consider when you travel full time. I think many people are not aware that it's not just life by the beach with a cocktail and a laptop. So managing this plus starting a freelance career, because both of these life changes require a lot of new learning. So how did you tackle that?
Okay, there's quite a lot in there. Well, first of all, I've extensively traveled well before I started doing this. Funny enough, I've only recently hit a new country for the first time since before I did all this nomad thing, since 2015. So very, very familiar with traveling. So that wasn't an issue. That wasn't really scary for me at all. I know it can be for some, but it wasn't for me. So working anywhere with a laptop is quite familiar to me, or was familiar to me. If I had to do that, leave the trade show booth, work in a cafe, do a meeting or something like that. You learn to be adaptable and flexible pretty quickly, like work in hotel rooms. So that wasn't a problem. The big problem I had was trying to figure out what I was going to do to earn money. And what I did was I built a website for my own company before, built an e-commerce store with Shopify. I made some good money with that. That was a successful part of my previous company. So I decided, well, if I can do it for myself, I can do it for other people. So what I did was one weekend I went home after work, created a brief website for myself to just announce my services, and then handed in my notice on Monday.
Nice.
And then reached out to my network looking for work, and it wasn't that very successful, to be honest.
So how did you get your first freelance gig?
The first one, well, when I went to all my network, they said, Ciarán, you know how to make all these products, you know how to do this, that, and the other, but what do you know about making websites? I don't know anything. I don't know you for that. So they didn't really trust me at first, especially a lot of my clients would have been big multinational, not multinationals, but multi-million companies. And they didn't really trust me with their website. So, which is fair. And I was really undervaluing my skills at the time. Trying to sell a €1,500 Shopify store to a 20 million euro company doesn't make any sense. And I didn't know that at the time. But I knew the people behind it and they gave me a chance. They would hear me out for sure. Luckily enough, some of them came back to me years later for work, which was good.
Oh, wow.
How did I get my first clients? It was mostly on job sites, like People Per Hour, Upwork, stuff like that. Tried Fiverr, didn't do anything on Fiverr. There was a few. People Per Hour was the most successful for me to get started.
Okay. Like, did you have any savings or some backup back then, just in case, like a plan B?
I had about 2 to 3 months of runway in terms of what I was earning in that previous company, but I made it stretch because I'd sold a lot of my stuff. I retreated to the family home first in my hometown. I think a lot of people would have done that, which is quite a big thing to do at being 37 at the time. So it feels like a retrograde step, but you just have to get over your ego, I think.
Yeah, I also think we have such a privilege because our worst case scenario is we just move in with the parents or we move in with the friend, which is not a comfortable feeling. Like nobody wants to do that.
No.
But if we look at the grand scheme of things, it's not such a bad situation. So you had that runway, you started reaching out to people in your network, they said no. So you found some online platforms. You knew you had like 2-3 months to make this work out. So what was it that then accelerated things where you're like, okay, I can do this Shopify thing, I can do this SEO thing. Do you remember like your first moment where like, okay, this is actually going to work out? Or was there a long phase of, I don't know, did I make the right choice?
There was both, actually. I did have a lot of doubts and fears to begin with, especially when I was earning very, very little compared to what I used to earn, like a few €100 instead of a few €1,000 in a month. What was the big aha moment? I think there was a store in Dublin that gave me a bit of a break, water sports shop, and they interested me. They actually got me to do a few fixes on their site first, and then it progressed into doing bigger work. And then it allowed me time to work with a store and to get them results over time. Whereas all the other stuff was like they told me what to do and I went and did it. This was a client where I could actually bring my own ideas to it. And that changed everything for me. So once I got another 1 or 2 clients like that, and I was able to tell or advise and consult as opposed to taking orders and order taking and just doing press buttons, change the color of this, do that, whatever. That changed everything for me. And then I started earning better money, and then I was able to really book my flight to Thailand and things like that. Or actually Las Palmas was the first place I went.
Yeah, my first place as well. You mentioned you had a business before that failed. Was it also a freelance business? And what type of business was it and what did you learn from it?
It was a manufacturing company in the sense that we manufactured a herbal device to inhale herbs, or otherwise known as cannabis in the real world. But it was sold as a herbal device. I'd worked in a family business who'd made similar products before, worked in tools and stuff like that. So I had a pretty good understanding of how the industry worked. The biggest learning, I tried to build everything in Ireland. I got all the components from around the world, and I worked with some family members who were helped me with the business. But I think the biggest learning was I probably should have outsourced more instead of trying to do everything myself.
Do you think that's also something that applies to freelancing?
100%.
Yeah, and like for me, the biggest relief happened when I hired my accountant, because that was just this, there's so much about money that we just don't know. There's so many rules and legislations. And also now that I'm hiring subcontractors, it's, if you've done UX I've been doing it for like 8 years now, I know things I wouldn't say in and out. There's always something to learn, but I don't want to push pixels on Figma anymore. I love playing around with certain features, but I've created so many components in my life. I've created so many buttons, and after a while it's nice to be like, okay, we need these things. Someone else do it. So
Yeah.
outsourcing is great. Is there anything that you're outsourcing at the moment where you're like, this saved me so much time?
Outsourcing content creation, just the kind of labor intensive stuff that takes time. With Shopify, that's especially with the stores that I work with that have a high amount of products. So we're talking about 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 products. That's a lot of pages, URLs. E-commerce pages or websites have a lot of URLs. Then you've got category pages to organize those. So 1,300 product store could have 300 category pages alone. So, and each one of those needs titles, descriptions, it needs optimization, and it's pretty formulaic. So that is a simple process. So that's what I'm outsourcing at the moment, is just the building blocks, the simple stuff.
Yeah, anything where you have a baseline and you just more or less copy paste the stuff that needs to be done. So like you said, it has a formula. So anything that's easy for someone else, okay, I know how this should work and I can apply it to that rather than you sitting there for hours, and your expertise could be used so much better for something else. So you're specialized in SEO specifically for Shopify. So what exactly, and I think you do Google Ads as well. I think it was those two things.
Google Shopping Ads for Shopify now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So just for the listeners, I'm pretty sure they know what SEO is, but could you quickly summarize what SEO means for Shopify and what you do, what your contribution is to that?
SEO, otherwise known as search engine optimization, or in real world, getting found on Google, or getting your page found on Google straight away. It involves trying to get your advertisements, pretty much your links on Google is your advertisement. It tells Google or people, this is who you are, what you do, or more specifically, what that product or service is. That's what SEO is just getting clicks through to the website. And then ideally, you've got a good website or a store that then has good conversion, then that should get a sale. But SEO is all about getting found on Google. So search engine optimization is what I do, but also SEM, which is search engine marketing, which is more of an accurate term.
And what's the difference?
It's a great question. A lot of people have different terminology for different things or see it different ways, but I see the whole thing as search engine marketing, to be honest, because it's Google Ads. Usually what they say is search engine marketing, but that's Google Ads covers YouTube, it covers Gmail, Google Discover, the shopping tab, pretty much all the different Google services. That's search engine marketing. SEO is just one part of that, but that's just your organic listings that you don't pay for. But they're getting less and less because of AI overviews coming in now. That's pushing everything further down. Ads had already pushed stuff down. So the way I see it, it's better to do the whole thing holistically.
I know for the freelancers, most of them might not have a Shopify page, but can you share some general SEO tips that any freelancer could implement on their website to potentially rank higher on Google, or common mistakes that they should avoid?
Don't ignore your meta titles and descriptions, because that's your free advertisement on Google. A lot of people ignore that and don't fill it in, or just use generic stuff, or even AI is a good place to start with using, like optimizing those, but handwrite them. It's only 2 lines. That's a common thing. Also, basic errors like not submitting your sitemap to Google Search Console, or
I did that and you helped me with that, so thank you.
But that's only like Google will find your sitemap. Don't worry if you've got one. Like every Shopify store has one, so it's not a big deal. But many hand-built stores or websites like yours might not have one. So you'd have to build one for Google to find it. So other tips with Shopify specifically, there's some unique challenges because it has its own crazy URL structure that can be quite long. So learning the skills on how to trim that down is important. And also learning keyword research is the fundamentals to everything. Knowing the right keyword, the search intent behind each keyword, that's the most important thing.
Since you're also specialized in Google Ads, would you recommend freelancers to invest in advertising, like so that specific keywords prompt people to go on their site? Or do you think it's not really worth the investment if you're a solopreneur freelancer, for example, but you don't get any leads through your website directly? Maybe just, for example, if someone finds your LinkedIn and then your website and then they reach out to you. But if you want to get people directly to your website as a freelance UX designer, freelance graphic designer, freelance editor, what would you recommend that they invest in Google Ads?
That's a tough one. In marketing in general, Google Ads can be very expensive because a lot of the big agencies have made it so expensive for a freelancer to be able to get into that space. So I would probably initially limit it to remarketing only. So only show adverts to people who've already visited your website or visited another place where you're online, like LinkedIn or social media or any other social media. I think going after social media ads is actually better for freelancers than actual Google ads, to be honest. I'm not a social media ad specialist, by the way. I haven't a clue about it, but I do know a lot of people in my space are a lot more successful at that. And nobody is successful with Google ads for getting freelance work. I do think, though, that SEO will help tremendously, though.
And when you say for socials, do you mean like SEO for, I don't know, Instagram, LinkedIn, or what do you mean?
No, I would recommend setting up some sort of funnel on social media to get traffic to your website. I wouldn't use Google ads. I would use meta ads.
Okay, so like a funnel to, I don't know, download a free guide, like like something along those lines, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Have some
right.
sort of like lead magnet, as you just described, or some sort of warming up the audience, whether it's a video that stays on Instagram and you keep them on Instagram because those platforms want you to stay on their platforms. You keep them on there as long as possible until they're ready to convert.
Okay. What do you do at the moment to have this funnel? Like, how does your funnel look like?
I don't have one.
Oh, why not?
Because I haven't needed one so far. I've actually only just put up a web page about a month ago. I will actually build one. But to be honest, I'm a bit old school. I come from a sales background, so I'm doing outbound sales, outbound cold calling, which a lot of people are frightened of. But,
yeah, I really dislike it. I mean, I don't mind it so much with my UX stuff itself because it's different because I've done it for a long time. I don't feel as salesy. Like I applied to a job where, not a job, but like a freelance gig when they're like, oh, we need a freelancer for 3-4 months. And then it's not really cold outreach because they already said what they need. I can help you. Let's have a chat. And then it's not a sales call because it's just a call to figure out, are we a good fit? Is it going to work for you, what I offer? And also, do I want to work with you? Whereas with cold outreach, it's, I don't even know if they need help with that. And then the conversation of, do you need help? Can I help? I find easy. But this first, trying to sell them the need, that's the thing that I find tricky. How do you tackle this? Do you have tips for anyone who...
Sure.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, so I have a pretty good process at the moment. With a big help from my sister, Jacqueline, by the way. She does a part of what we were talking about outsourcing earlier. She does a lot of what I call appointment setting. So what I've done is I've downloaded a big, huge lead list. It's very easy to find. Like BuiltWith is a good example of this. You know, if you're familiar with builtwith.com, which you can look at the technology a website is using. So you can type in any website, but they also have a database of all the websites built with that technology. So you can go in, pay a few €100 and download all the stores in Ireland that use Shopify, or all the stores in the UK that use Shopify, or France or Germany or wherever. So you do that, and then you've got hundreds of thousands of stores. Now you need to filter that because there's going to be stores that barely don't even do anything, and then stores that are multi-billion big stores. So you need to spend time trimming that down. I go after a certain sweet spot between 500,000 and 5 million is the kind of business range I work in, but some are higher than that. So you look at those, and then what Jacqueline will do is that she'll then cold call those companies, find out who it is, do the research, like find out who the person is you need to talk to. But here's the beauty of it, because there's like 10,000 stores in Ireland, for example, and you whittle that down to a few hundred or 500, that's a lot to get through. I wouldn't even get through that this summer, for example. And that's just Ireland, which is a tiny country, but there's a lot of people using it. So that just means I don't need to really care whether we find a need or not on every single call. I just need to find the one person that actually has a need right now. And you just take the emotion out of it. But to get them in a bit of a hook, we do give them an example of what result we did before for another type of client that's similar to theirs. So we've helped a company go from X to Z using these, like using SEO and Google shopping ads. Is this something you're interested in talking about? The hit rate on that is about 5 to 10, and about 5 and 50, so 1 in 10.
Okay. So basically you find your audience. So the way you're finding it is to buy those leads, list of people that have a Shopify website, and then you niche it down to who actually needs it, who fits in your range of audiences that you can actually help services with. So you have this 1 to 5 million scale. Then you find the right stakeholder who makes a decision on can you hire them, because I think it's even when you have a very simple support desk thing, like finding the right person that can help you is a pain. So getting to the right person who makes a decision on, okay, do we hire someone for SEO? That will be hard. And then you have those calls, but also before hopping on the call, you show them a result you've done for a previous person. So it's like, this is what you could get as well working with me. Let's discuss. Do you also get warm leads in? Like, how do you get them?
2 main ways. I get leads in through LinkedIn, and I get them in through Shopify's own partner directory.
Okay.
My business is registered as a Shopify partner for SEO and store bills as well, but mostly SEO and Google Ads and analytics as well.
So at the moment, compared to at the beginning of your career where you said you just had to do cold outreach, now what's your ratio like with people coming in versus the cold outreach that you're doing?
It's a lot of cold outreach at the moment because I've just done an extensive campaign, and I've just gone from, because I whittled down to actually only a couple of clients. I decided I really needed to scale that up pretty quickly, and I did it within about 3 to 4 weeks, and I had my whole calendar full of work at the moment. So
good.
The great thing about cold outreach is that you can scale up very rapidly, like far faster than email, far faster, like cold outreach email, far faster than inbound ever will. But they are cold leads. Like you were talking about, you had a warm lead. It's a much different conversation with a warm lead. If you have a super hot lead where they really want to work with you and they call you multiple times, that's much easier to convert. And I've had one of those quite a while ago as well.
Yeah.
Where I've actually said no to them repeatedly for a variety of different reasons. But one main reason.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice though when you have someone, even if you maybe know it's not a good fit, but if you have someone who really wants to work with you, it's also good for the ego, I guess. But you also mentioned before to take out the emotion when it comes to cold calling. What do you mean by that, and how do you do it?
Get over yourself. That's what I mean by that. You are going to get nervous. You are going to get cold sweats. It's a bit like doing video on YouTube for the first time, or doing anything, even freelancing for the first time. It's that nervousness that you get. Like, this is the first time me doing a podcast. I'm quite nervous doing this. So, but that's to be expected. That's normal. I did a YouTube video last week for the first time. I was nervous doing that, even though it's recorded in the exact same way as I do training videos for my clients. For some reason, it just creates electricity inside you. So how do you get over it? You just have to remind yourself that it's just normal, that you're going to get cold sweats, you are going to get nervous. But once you get more familiar with it, after your 10th call or your 20th call, once you've got your process down, you're going to feel much, much more comfortable. You're not even going to care and half the time you might even listen to the person at the other end of the call if they're saying, oh no, I can't get who you're looking for, or I won't give it to you. You just move on to the next one. Like, there's a million stores out there. I'm not going to get through that entire list in my lifetime.
Yeah, a friend of mine, she had this challenge she did with herself, which was to get a no. So her task was to get rejected. So she had to get at least 3 no's per week. So she would just hop on the call, and then it would feel like an achievement if the person's like, no, this is not for me. And it's like, okay, I've done this. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. And it took away the fear because she was not attached to the outcome. And then if they would say yes, it's like, oh, actually I expected a no, but actually now I have a client. So it's not that bad. So I wonder, did you have a lot of businesses, like business owners, freelancers around you when you grew up? Because when I grew up, it was always get a proper job, climb up a certain ladder, and that's what a career is. There was no mention of freelancing or starting a business. Even if I said I would want my own hairdressing shop or something, it's like, oh, it's not making money, things like that. And you mentioned that you have a family business, which did a I had no idea that you were in that industry. Like I'm learning a new side of you. But did you always have this growing up, that there were a lot of business people around you?
Yeah, my dad.
All right.
He's the, I suppose, the spark and the idea of working for myself. He set up a company in my hometown in Carlow, a very successful company, manufacturing soldering irons, tools. One little invention led to a lot of different applications that grew the business, and it grew quite rapidly. So yeah, I come from that kind of mentality. And then me and my two sisters also worked in that company as well at various, like I did what I call two stints or two tours of duty as for military parlance, So yeah, I come from that background. We come from that kind of constantly talking about business, like around the dinner table. It was always talking about work. Now, I actually, in hindsight, think that's a bad idea. But it did create that environment for us to think entrepreneurial. And so, yeah, we all have that kind of mindset in the family.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you feel like you wish you knew earlier, or would have maybe done a bit different based on that mind, or like any mindset shifts you have now that you didn't have when you started your career, where you feel like, oh, I wish I knew that earlier, it would have made my life so much easier?
Don't know if anything would have made my life easier. I think I probably would have progressed more if I'd actually gone and worked for somebody else. Funny enough. I would have got a better view of the world. So actually, when I did leave the family business and I went off and worked for other companies, and then I came back, I was able to bring that knowledge in and apply it to the company, to the family, and that actually helped it grow. But I think I spent too long in there, and I should have gone elsewhere to grow my own career. And I think I just became too dependent on it, a bit like dependent on your parents too much.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I stayed way longer than I should have.
So did you always want to be a freelancer? Did you ever think like, actually, I want an office job, or?
No, for me, it's actually, what does freelancing do for you? It's the lifestyle behind it. It wasn't always like that. When I had my own company, I'd always wanted to have a company. I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be like all young boys, So I wanted to have a company. I wanted to have a team around me and all this kind of stuff. That's what I wanted, and build a big company and, conquer the world. But when that failed, and then I went through a lot of the other stuff and then worked for other companies, I only got into freelancing as a means to an end, which is to go and travel the world and fund my lifestyle. That was the only reason I got into freelancing. Now that I'm coming towards turning that into an agency, it's changing again. My goal is to buy a boat and sail the world and do circumnavigation. This is to fund that. Freelancing is a means to an end. It's not everything. It's just a means of making money so I can do the things I really want to do in my life.
What you said there, I find quite interesting, that it's the lifestyle, what freelancing can offer, that you simply can't get when you're employed, because they are going to tell you where you're working from. Even if they allow you to work fully remote, they are the ones deciding, or maybe you can work within Europe, or maybe you can work within this time zone, or they are the ones deciding when you're allowed to take holiday. You always have to ask for permission. So that's quite nice. And one thing for me as well, why I started freelancing, is because I wanted the freedom to decide for myself. I wanted to be able to go for, I don't know, a 3-hour-long lunch break where I meet a friend for lunch, do a bit of yoga, have a chill afternoon before going back to work. And then it's on me if that means I work late, or it's on me if I start late, or if I want to start at 2 a.m., which never happen, but I can if I wanted to. What do you do in your day-to-day, or do you have a certain routine where you basically have, I don't know if you want to call it a boundary, or something that you do to make life not just about work, but create this work-life balance?
I try to respect the after work time and not work after 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whatever it is. I wasn't always so good at that, even in the beginning of freelancing, but I think in the last year or two, I've gotten much better at it. So respecting that boundary and also not working at weekends. Now, sometimes I will want to work at weekend because I'll want to achieve a project or I might want to do something. But that's the beauty of freelancing, is that, like you said, you can decide when to turn it on, when to turn it off. Actually, when I started freelancing, I was massively in debt from closing my own company because I decided not to go bankrupt. I decided to take on a lot of debt. Freelancing allowed me to, it gives you more freedom to earn more money than you would ever working for somebody else, because they might give you a 7% or a 10% pay rise, but they're never going to give you a 100% pay rise or a 200% pay rise whenever you need it. I need to pay for an ear operation. I pay myself just above minimum wage. I keep most of my money in my company, but I can scale that up massively next month to pay for my ear operation and then scale it back down again. That's just, you can't do that being employed for somebody else. Not that I know of.
On that note, actually, how do you do the whole health insurance, regular checkup things as a digital nomad?
I don't. I'm really bad at this. I did have health insurance up until recently. I've had multiple different health insurance products. I've used one of the popular Nomad ones, but that's only medical travel insurance. And I found out that my bank card already had that built in. So I cancelled it promptly, pretty quickly, because I discovered that. I had a Spanish health insurance because I was going down the residency road in Spain, and I might reactivate that. That's to be decided, but that's just the way life is on traveling around. Going back to Ireland is not an option because health insurance is just, insurance in general in Ireland is a mess. So if I actually go to any health insurance provider in Europe or around the world and tell them I'm a resident of Ireland, they'll just say no. It says just not available. But if I say I'm a resident of Spain or Italy or France, it's not a problem. So getting residency in Spain is probably an option. So at the moment, I just pay for everything privately. I just pay out of pocket.
Yeah, I do the same, which is fine if you have like the regular, I don't know, teeth cleaning thing, once a year, just to, if there's something they tell you in advance, which still comes cheaper than, I guess, making a doctor's appointment once and then you have to fix a crown or whatnot. Like I had so many horror stories about people and their teeth. So like for me, that's probably the biggest money sucker in health. But of course, if it's like a small here and there, most of the insurances don't even cover it until you have like a minimum spend of 100, 200 pounds or euros. So it's not really worth it having those insurances. But of course, they play with your fear that something big happens if you have a big operation abroad. So for that, it's always like, okay, yeah, get insurance just in case.
Well, the advantage of being an EU citizen is that you got the what we call the blue card in Ireland, but it's called European Health Insurance Card, I think it's called.
Yeah,
so being able to use that anywhere in the EU and just walk into a hospital for an emergency or dealing with anything that's urgent, like I've relied on it a few times and it's been fantastic. So using the public health service in France or Spain, Portugal even, I've used, not a problem. And that's been my default. That's what I use mostly. But if at the moment now, next month, I'm getting an ear operation in South Africa and I'm paying that out of pocket, and that's going to be €3,500, which is still cheaper than doing it in Europe if I was to pay it privately.
You mentioned your sales background. So did you do sales at your dad's company or? Yeah, because for me, sales is such a cringy thing. And I have all of these, like I listen to a lot of podcasts or read blogs. And it's always like, think of helping them. Don't think of selling to them. But it's still like I'm asking for someone's time when I don't even know if that's what they want, even though I feel like I can help them. But this initial, okay, I need to like knock on your door. Like that's the thing that I find icky. Once the door is open and we talk, fine. But this knocking on the door. So do you have any tips for people, freelance specifically?
Like I said, getting over yourself. But I think you got to know that a lot of people do want to be helped and are waiting for somebody to actually knock on their door. So like I've had a client recently who said, yes, we are looking for something. We're actively looking for somebody to help us with our Shopify store. And this is actually the list of things we need. So they actually were well prepared. So we just found that right person at the right time. Now, whether it's actually an active discussion at the moment, so whether to get the client or not is irrelevant, but it just goes to show that there's a lot of people out there that definitely need your services. You just need to go looking for it. That's an old friend of mine in LA had this expression that I've got a wheelbarrow, I'm just going to go around picking up all the money that's lying around the place. So it kind of reminds me of that. Like you just have to go out there and do it. If you want to really practice knocking on doors, is actually to physically knock on doors, which is what I have done, and that's for a charity organization, and that will get over your fear pretty quickly. So I literally go to door, resident, house to house for weeks in the winter. Do that for a charity organization, and you won't have a problem with it again.
I don't know if I could do that. But also, it's this. I feel like there's another level when it's just on the phone or via Zoom or via email, because you don't see the person behind it. You don't see the real reaction, or they're like, oh, I just want to hang up the phone, or I just want to get rid of this person, And it still feels harsh when someone, I mean, I've not done cold outreach in that way since I can remember, actually. I've never done it without at least knowing the other person has a website where they would need UX changes or something along those lines. Or I would contact an agency maybe where I know they create websites, they will probably need a UX designer. So I already narrowed it down. I'm not knocking on random doors. I'm knocking on doors where, like what you said, you don't just randomly ring anyone in the phone book, but you look at the list of leads of who has a Shopify website. You're not trying to convince people to change from, I don't know what other e-commerce options there are, to Shopify. You specifically go to the people that have a Shopify page, which makes it easier. I think sales is such an important part of the business. And without that sale, it doesn't matter what good of a designer you are, or how good you are in SEO, or how good you are in other things. If you don't nail sales, you will never be able to prove how good you are. And I think that's also the hard thing, because I've seen so many designers who are good, but as soon as they talk to someone or they know it's sales or there's something at stake, they freeze, or they just like, you can tell that they're very nervous. And then the other person is also like, why should I trust this person when they don't seem to be trusting themselves? What would you tell to someone who is in that situation where, yeah, that's totally me. I'm a good designer. I'm a good whatever service they offer, but I suck at sales. How do you improve?
Well, I think you need to understand your value, but I think ultimately you need to know who the audience is that you're going after, because that makes it so much easier. Like as soon as you know who you do UX for or who you do Google Ads for, it's the same with marketing. So this is where sales and marketing are pretty much identical. You need to know who your target audience is. You need to know your ideal customer, or the sweet spot customers, I call it. So for me, I love working with sports brands. I get better results with working with sports brands. I don't like working with female fashion brands. The vast majority of Shopify agencies work with female fashion brands. So that's differentiated me from them, which helps me narrow down who I want to go after. And then once you get a result for somebody already, then it makes it far easier to have a conversation with somebody else, because they'll see, oh, you've got a result. I like your work. I like what you've done. I like what UX. I like either the design or the functionality, or how that all worked together, and how you embodied our brand in this mobile app. So I think fundamentally you need to understand your audience. Once you know your audience, you're far more comfortable. So you tend not to have that problem at all. So like whenever I have a conversation with a sports brand, or outdoor sports actually, I'm much more comfortable because we talk the same language.
So is that your niche at the moment, sports brands?
It's an informal niche. I do take on other projects from other things, but that's actively what I'm going after. So people who sell outdoor sports equipment. So whether it's in surfing, or whether it's in cycling, or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Did you always know that was your niche, or how did you find it?
I'm actually enjoying those activities, so it kind of naturally gravitated towards them. Another niche I would go after, though, I would be a bit more intentional about where the money is. So outdoor furniture, lots of money in that niche, because they're big ticket items and people love to decorate their houses. So I'd probably go after that market. But at the moment, I'm busy going through that list of outdoor sports brands and sports brands in general. And people love doing activities, getting outdoors. So it's an easy one to work with.
Yeah, especially if you yourself has a passion for it. I'm just thinking, what else can I ask you? I find it actually much harder to talk to people that I know, because I already know stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. But when like I don't know, it's like, oh, tell me about this, tell me about that. But I know so many things about you already.
Yeah, the only other thing I could advise in sales is that first thing that you're talking about, getting over the first hurdle, that's only the start of it. Real sales happens in the long-term relationship with that client, because you can sell a client on a, I don't know, €5,000 project or 10,000 or 20,000, whatever it is. But it's the lifetime value of the customer, as they call it in e-commerce. It also applies to freelancing. So keeping that client on for longer and longer and longer, like what other value can you bring to them? How can you enhance that project? Can you upskill and bring those skills back to the project? Which I've done as well. So I've gone broad and I've gone deep.
The other thing that I hear a lot is that it's not about the sales conversation itself, that sales is like a whole journey. It's from the first contact, they come across you, you come across them, also while you're working with them. Because at any time they could say, actually, no, it's not what we think. And they can come back, especially if you have an add-on service. So I assume you will clean up their SEO, but then also you will probably try and maintain it. So that's another service where you potentially get them on a retainer. And then also you can amplify it by just asking them for a testimonial, or ask them if they know anyone who needs a similar service, because we all know people who are similar to us or who do similar things. So if you'd ask me for a UX designer, I can tell you so many people. If I would ask you for an SEO expert, I'm pretty sure you know a lot of people because you're in that field. So your clients will know other people who do similar things to them who could benefit from the service that you do. So just asking for referrals is a great way. Also, then it's kind of a warm lead already. You're no longer knocking on the door. They already expect you to go there.
You touched on a great point there, actually, and there's something else that you can do to make more money without doing anything, which is, and it's to do with referrals, is that I've got a client and I don't provide a service, even though I know the service quite well. I used to do email marketing, for example, and I pulled out of it to be more specialized. But I know other email marketing specialists. So whenever I get on a new client, I've got a partnership agreement with another email marketing person to bring them in later on the project, which would come up in the beginning of the discovery call, like, what other marketing activities are you doing? Right, you're not doing email, you're doing really good on social, your SEO is not great, you're doing a bit of Google Ads, but your email marketing is non-existent. And they're like, okay, you can increase your sales, your business e-commerce sales by 30% by bringing in email marketing. I'm not going to do that for you, but I know somebody over here, this other freelancer that works really well with Klaviyo email marketing for Shopify. And I've got a deal with her that I'll earn 5% on her retainer over the next 6 months or a year. And you can do that for other people like with Shopify, there's about 6 or 7 different marketing channels. You've got TikTok, you've got Meta ads, you've got LinkedIn in some cases. And once you've worked with a partner in one of those and you bring them into a project, or they bring you into a project, you're just going to increase your overall value and your own worth, and you're going to make money without doing anything.
You're basically getting commission for referring someone to them that they are looking for, and it's a win-win. The client gets more out of it, because email marketing is, I think people keep forgetting how valuable that is. I used to work in this digital agency that just did email marketing for TalkTalk. Back then it was Debenhams. They don't exist anymore, and the money that comes in from just sending an email with, this is the latest new whatever it is.
Yeah.
So much money coming in from an email. So if they start to invest that, there's so much return of investment. The freelancer you're hiring gets something out of it because they have a new client, they make money out of it. You get something out of it, and it's a win-win-win. So
100%.
I think that's a pretty good deal. And I think people often see other freelancers as competition rather than, hey, we can actually help each other. And even if we have the same target audience, maybe even if we offer the same service, sometimes it happens, I'm fully booked, I can pass something on to you, and maybe you can't take over all of these new clients, so you pass it on to me, rather than like, oh, we're all fetching for whatever is in this basket.
And that's a really important one, because I want to trust the next person I'm going to hand over a project to. Like, I can no longer work with this client, or this, I get a lead in and I could close the sale, but I'm all of a sudden full with work, I can't take it on. But I want to keep some sort of connection, either some sort of connection with that client, or I want them to be successful, because I think paying good value forward is a good way to operate. But having another person in my space, like another SEO specialist or Google Ads specialist, like I know somebody in the US who's really good at what I do in Google Ads for e-commerce. I wouldn't hesitate referring a client to them if I was full, or another way to look at it is if that it's a small project, like for a junior freelancer, somebody's just starting off, it's a great way to hand off work that way to get them started. But you need to trust them, so you need to know them, and it's better to work together than it is to work against each other.
Yeah, actually, what you just said is exactly what I'm doing. So if there's a gig coming in where it's like, okay, this is basic, this is easy, a junior can do this. And also it ties in with what I mentioned before. I've pushed so many pixels already. I'm very happily sourcing that out to a junior designer. They get the first freelance gig from it. We are building a relationship because we help each other. They make my life easier. I can teach them what I've learned because I have no benefit of just keeping that to myself. The client gets the work delivered, and the way I work is like I get a bit of whatever my subcontractor is making because I still make the design better because I give inputs. I try to look into the UX. So it's not like you do all the work and I just sit by. So it's a win-win-win situation. The client gets what they want with a senior overlooking it for probably a better rate because the junior is working on it. And also the junior gets something out of it. They learn something and I get my time. So there are so many different ways you can collaborate with others where you don't feel like you're taking advantage of anyone or stealing someone's money. It's like everyone still gets something out of it. And that's also the nice thing of freelancing. I think is if you're in a company, it would be quite tricky to do that, or there are certain expectations that if they give you this task to do that, they expect you to do it rather than like you would have to climb the ladder first before you would be allowed to delegate. So yeah.
But there's only positive upside on that. There's no negative, I think.
Yeah.
And even if you also want to go after bigger clients yourself, you can do that in reverse. You can contact other agencies that are much, much bigger than you and work on them much. So if you want to start working on bigger projects, you say, look, you ring these agencies, a bit like cold calling for clients, but for agencies, and just say, look, I'm available. I have this work and this is my niche. This is kind of the projects I've worked on. This is what I specialize in. If you have if you have any overflow work, or if you have any projects that you can't take on, but they might fit this, please give me in consideration for those.
I also think it's not just about cold calling potential clients. It's also, you can outreach to other freelancers, and most freelancers don't do that, where they just introduce themselves and it's like, oh, I have a similar service to you. And actually, I noticed a few times I was maybe talking to someone and she does social media for luxury brands. And then another person I met, he does not social media, but he creates photo shoots and other things in 3D. And I connected them because you don't know about each other, but you have the same target audience and they will probably need a bit of both of you. So you can collaborate on these things. And again, I don't get anything out of it, but I also know for them it's nice. And I would love for someone else to do that for me if they will see, oh, we'd be a good fit working for the same type of client. And it's not just, I don't think you always have to get something out of it. It's just, if you can help, just help. It makes your life easier. It makes their life easier. And I always feel like what you give, you also get. So yeah.
What goes around comes around. It's a part of a community as well. And you build a community around, or you integrate within another community. It's all connected. It's one of the reasons why people go to networking events as well. It's the same idea, but you can do that without going to networking events. I know so many Shopify store builders and designers who started off by just contacting other freelancers and agencies looking for work, and that's how they started.
You said your background was in sales. You quit your job to go freelance out of a need. With the knowledge that you have now, would you do it again? And if so, how?
Would I go freelance again?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'd recommend freelancing to anybody, especially if they want to be, if they're independently minded, that they want to go off and do things themselves and they feel stuck in a job. But how would I do it? Would I do things differently? I'd go But actually would have cold called a lot more. Funny enough. No, but I think the biggest thing that held me back the longest in freelancing was not picking a niche and sticking to it. I tried too many different things. Like I started off with Shopify store builds, then I went into email marketing, and I thought that's the next big shiny object. Then I did both, and then I worked on small projects like fixing projects. Then I did Google Analytics projects. I did lots of different things before I settled down on just doing SEO and Google Ads. And I still do email marketing for one or two clients, but that's their long-term retainer clients. I'm not offering that to anybody else.
Mm.
So the main advice is what I would do is I'd stick to one thing. Like, did you start with UX and only stay in UX? Did you change anything?
I got into UX by accident. I did not even know what it was, and I was doing it. And then when I started freelancing, I wanted to freelance. I didn't really care so much what I offered, but because I was already a UX designer, I did that. And the thing is, I don't really have a niche. Like, I design apps, I design websites, I design B2B software, just desktop-based applications. I don't really have a niche per se. So I never sat down and made a plan on this is what I'm going to do with my freelance career. I just applied for all the things I could find on LinkedIn that said freelance and went from there.
And here you are.
Here I am. Yeah.
Very good. That's
Having
a great way to do it
podcast
as
that
well.
has nothing to do with UX, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to do it too. Like, I don't think there's a million different ways of doing this. I mean, there's no massively right way or wrong way. For me, as long as it builds the lifestyle that you want. Like, I see currently what I'm doing is limiting where I want to go. So I will have to change something. Introducing consulting as opposed to doing like done with you projects as opposed to done for you projects, like what you're talking about a little bit with outsourcing. But doing that for clients is going to allow me more time, still solve bigger problems, like major tax headaches with Shopify in Ireland and Northern Ireland and Brexit and all that. I won't bore you with the details, but Shopify haven't figured that out yet 3 years later. So solving those big problems, and that's not necessarily an SEO problem, but it's a lot of problems that a lot of Shopify stores in Ireland want to solve. So doing that, I need to buy more time. So that's why I want to do YouTube as well. That's why I want to transition to doing other things. But freelancing is probably one of the best things you can do to get started, to have an independent life, to get to do what you want, to earn almost infinite income. I mean, you can earn whatever you want really with this, like save up for a house, buy a boat, whatever.
Yeah, we talked about this in the past when I remember we were in Las Palmas and I was like, I'm doing this Instagram stuff and I don't know what I'm doing. And it's like I post my picture of my face and it's so weird. I feel as cringy about it still today as I do with sales, even though I've done that as part of freelancing for so long and I've been working on my online presence for maybe almost 2 years now. I'm on and off, so it's quite interesting for me to see your journey because we talked about it back then and you just launched your first YouTube video. How do you tackle this whole social media? Do you feel as confident about it as you do with sales? I know you mentioned before the cold sweats, like every time for the first time you do something, but what motivated you to, okay, I'm just going to do this first video, and how do you plan the rest of that journey?
So how I got motivated, I've been putting this off for a long time, but I was in a co-work here in Bansko. I know. I was in a co-work here in Bansko and I met this guy, Daniel Kovacs. He does, his YouTube channel as well. He does, his niche, I think, is to do with DaVinci Resolve and on an iPad or something. And he's very passionate about YouTube. And he'd already talked to another guy about helping him get his YouTube channel off the ground to do sound and audio and stuff. So we were just sitting across from each other and he just goes on his notepad and just puts up while I'm working on my screen and says, "I'll be your first subscriber." And I'm like, fuck, I better fucking just do this. Sorry, I shouldn't be swearing on this, but
that's fine.
I should do this straight away. I need to do this. I have to do this. I put it off for too long. And then within the next hour, I did it and I had it uploaded and I had a thumbnail created and everything. It's very short. It's only a small thing and the sound is horrible. It's it's getting started. And it also brought me back to remembering when you first started, and one or two other people I know, but yours was amazing. And seeing the
No,
progression of where you've come from and where you are now, and highly inspirational. So you're definitely up there, one of my
I'm blushing.
inspired. You're a true inspiration.
Well, that's why it's so interesting for me to see your journey, because we were talking about it at the same time. And even though now I'm way more confident, also almost not comfortable, but I'm gonna get over with it. Like the other day I was on a train, and it wasn't a very busy train, but I placed my camera there, and I saw that the guy who does the ticket, he gave me like a weird look. And I'm like, yeah, maybe it's like, these people, But at the same time, if I don't do it, it's just a quick video on the train. Who cares? I'm not even putting a massive, how do you call this? Selfie stick or something somewhere. I basically just leaned it against my back. And I don't even know if I'm going to use this footage or not. I don't know if anyone is going to see that. But also, I'm very unlikely going to see this train clerk again. And why do I care what he thinks about me? Maybe he's also, I don't even know what he thinks, I'm thinking that he's thinking, oh my God, these people. But maybe he's thinking, maybe I should do something else with my life. Or maybe he doesn't think about me at all. He's just looking at, did I ask her for her ticket yet? Did I check if she has it? It's this, we are so easily distracted about what other people think of us. Why does it matter? Why does it matter what he thinks? Even if he thinks, oh, those people, he doesn't know anything about me. He doesn't know my background. He doesn't know why I'm doing this. Yeah, so it's interesting for me to see your journey. Also, I'm looking forward to your next video. I know you've done one. And it's so interesting how you've pushed it off for so long. And then there's this one person that inspires you, or puts a little bit of pressure. And then within an hour, you get it done and it's online. So it's interesting for me to see how we block ourselves from those things that we push off. Yeah.
Well, we had that conversation. Like he was saying, why hadn't you done it so far? And I came up with all these blocks, and it was just like freaking excuses. It was just ridiculous amount of layers of building up this wall in front of me, this moat to stop me from doing it. And I'm like, yeah, it's stupid. For me, it was all about, I need to have a great microphone. I need to have all this other stuff. And he said, no, like just to get started. I mean, and I think it's the same with freelancing as well. Like just use what you've got. I only had a crappy laptop at the time when I started. Like you just use what you've got, and you can do whatever you can. Be very creative if you need to be. I used Loom, I think, for my first video. I might use other tools or softwares later, but I just use what to get started,
And that's the thing. Like all the blockers, if you look at it, not having the right microphone, there's now AI where you can enhance the sound. And if you look at my first podcast episode that I did with Nate, and it's nice because I just saw him last weekend, the first episode we filmed in this very echoey room. And it's such a pain to listen to. You just start. And I think for me, what I learned, it's not about the outcome. The first thing to do is to get into the habit. Get into the habit of filming. Get into the habit of talking in front of the camera. And you don't have to publish any of this, but get into the habit of creating something. And then everything else will become so much easier.
Yeah, it's habit stacking. Like you just build one on top of the other. Like you just start small, start doing it in a low barrier way that you can get started, and don't worry about the rest of it, and just do what they call in, I don't know, rugby, like those 1% gains.
Yeah.
You just improve 1% every single time, just one tiny little change over it. And then you'll see a massive difference in 6 months or a year's time to where you were. And yeah, you're just building it slowly, like as a small project. So yeah, and I was buzzing afterwards, and you get this kind of rush afterwards once you do it. So it's quite
it's very
funny.
scary. But then also, and I talked with a recent guest about this, Eva, and the first time you do this, it's like, oh my God, people are going to see my face. People are going to see my face. And then the mindset shift from only 100 people saw my stories. Why am I even doing this? And it's interesting, and it's such a personal growth as well to just do this. And then when this thing that you were so scared of becomes, it's just another thing you do, you're less scared of all the other hurdles that come along your way, and you realize most of the fears we have, it's just what we put in our head. Because honestly, like this train clerk, why do you even care what he thinks? And he might not have thought anything negative. And It's so weird how we stop ourselves from achieving what we want to achieve sometimes.
Yeah, everybody's their own biggest competitor to stop them from progressing.
Yeah.
So it's not everybody else around you; it's yourself
Yeah.
who you're fighting against the most. So yeah, I don't think your train clerk would have thought too much about it. Probably would have mentioned it to his other half later on that night, but that about the end of it.
Yeah.
as far as it went. You know, even then, if you think about it yourself, like, are you that observant about all the people around you on a train or in a public space?
Actually, it's funny. On the train, there was a girl in front of me, and I saw her sing to herself. I think she was doing one of those TikTok lip syncing things. And I was looking at her, and my first thought was like, these people. And then I was like, I'm one of these people. I'm not singing on TikTok. I'm not lip syncing stuff, but I'm one of these people. And I'm like, honestly, she can do whatever she wants. She's not harming me. She's not harming anyone. She's just on the train lip syncing into the camera. And I think often when we think other people think that, we are the ones who think that. We also pay unnecessary attention to others. And I was like, oh, good for you. You have free time on the train. Just do whatever makes you happy, you know? So it also makes you change how you perceive things. And yeah, I never thought that content creation would be this thing that, I wouldn't say it changes me a lot, but you learn so much about yourself, your unconscious beliefs, and yeah, it's very interesting.
It's great for personal development.
Yes. Yeah.
See, I've always had a problem with public speaking. I can talk to anybody about anything. It's one of the, I don't know, gifts of being Irish or whatever, gift of the gab, but I can talk to anybody about any topic or any subject. I can, in any airport lounge, whatever, talk to anybody. Put me on stage and I'll say the exact same thing in front of everybody. I'll just freeze. I don't know why it is. I don't know what it is. And it's the same with doing videos online for some reason.
But the good thing is you can edit it. You decide when to publish it. You decide when you're ready. And I can tell you now, you never feel ready. But
No.
you have control over that. Whereas the stage thing, it's a bit less control. And then maybe once you've done a few more YouTube things, maybe you'll feel comfortable on the stage one day.
Or do more podcast episodes.
Yeah. Before we end this conversation, there are a few questions I ask every guest. And one of them is, would you ever go back to a permanent job?
I've always said I'm unemployable, and that's the reason I'm in freelancing. So I don't think so. Don't say never, ever, but because never is a very, very powerful word, as my dad said. It would have to be for a very good reason. And I don't know what that is. I'd have to be open-minded about it at the time, but it's highly unlikely.
And if you could go back in time to when you sold your apartment, when you started freelancing without really knowing what to do, what would you today tell your younger self?
I'd probably just reassure them and give them confidence that they can do it, and also just go for it.
And if you think of 5 years from now, maybe your YouTube channel is going to be huge. Maybe you will have spoken on a stage. You probably by then figured out where you're going to take your business. What do you think your future self would come and tell you today?
Probably the same as what the other one said. Just go for it. But that's a great question because, yeah. I'd like to think maybe enjoy the process as opposed to being fearful of it. I think that's it. Just enjoy it as opposed to be fearful of it.
I think it's hard to think to enjoy something because it's like, how do I do this? But in a way, I really, really enjoy these moments where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work out or not, but you've tried. You know, you've done what you could with the resources you had. If you have a microphone or not, if you have a nice laptop or not, but you've tried. So
when you travel to a new country that you've never been to before, there's a little bit of that for the first few hours, like totally unknown, especially if it's in a culture that's very far removed from your own. Like whether you change continents, for example, for the first time, you get that like, oh, what am I doing? Where am I going? I don't know anything. Language, I don't know their language at all. They don't know mine. It's the same problem, just on a different scale and different way of dealing with it. So it's all about solving a problem. And then you enjoy it, funny enough. You're enjoying that process. That's you put yourself in that position to enjoy it.
True. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. If the listeners want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, on LinkedIn and on my company website, oglesbymedia.com.
Nice. Thank you so much. And I'm going to add your YouTube channel to the links as well so people can support you.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. For sure.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Ciarán. And speak to you soon.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It was great catching up with Ciarán and learn more about his freelance journey. I had no idea about his background in sales, but it shows how helpful it is to be able to sell as a freelancer. And it's not just about the skills you offer, but how you market yourself. I'm adding all the links to learn more about Ciarán in the description of this podcast and his YouTube, because he needs a little pressure to continue with his social media. You can also support the Freelance Blueprint by sharing it with your friends. If you liked this episode, please leave a review and hit the follow button. This helps the Freelance Blueprint get suggested to more freelancers like you. Feel free to share this episode with any of your friends you think can benefit from listening. That's all from me, and I can't wait to have you join again next week. Bye!